Hello and welcome to the Understanding Narcissists YouTube channel. This episode is going to be about a topic I think everybody's really going to like because they're going to know it intimately. I'm assuming everyone is familiar with the idea of emotional abuse, and I'm going to go into that in later videos because it's a really important subject. But in short, and at its most kind of simplistic definition, emotional abuse being the damage and abuse suffered at the psychological level. Basically, it's what narcissists do, which is that they're not chasing you around and causing you physical trauma, they're causing you emotional trauma, which is to say, kind of instilling that dysfunction from them into you, and it's causing distress and problems in your own life. Now, that is not a totally sufficient definition or a complete definition, but it should be sufficient for this video. That leads me into another thing you're undoubtedly about to come across if you haven't already, which is that narcissists don't believe in emotional abuse. I think my dad put it the best when we were talking about something. I think a family member from the past, a previous generation, talking about domestic violence, talking about physical abuse of some kind that a relative of ours suffered in the past, and he called it. He looked at me and kind of smirked and said he called it real abuse. Yeah, that's real abuse. And what he's saying, in a subtle and not so subtle way, is that whatever I think regarding abuse or anything he does, that it's not abusive. Now, it's easy to see why narcissists are inclined to believe this and promulgate this, or really force it onto you. Because narcissists, first of all, not just narcissists, every abusive type, if they're not totally psychopathic, which a lot of them aren't, there's just something wrong, just like with all of us, there are things wrong. They will have a reason, an excuse for what they do. So even a man who hits his wife or his girlfriend, which there are way too many of them in the world, including hitting his children, and women hitting men, but it's mostly men who hit women, he has something in his mind that delineates or draws a line between what he does and what would actually be abusing his wife. He thinks, well, I don't do this. Maybe my dad used to, put out his cigarettes on my arm or something, but I don't do that, so I'm not really abusing my family. There's always something there, and it's an emotional excuse too. That it's not as bad, so therefore it's not. Maybe it's not okay, and I'm not gonna, talk to the police about it or bring it up in a session with a therapist. But it's not really bad. It's not really wrong. Narcissists are the same way, that they take it even further. They really believe that because they're not chasing you around and hitting you, they aren't abusive. Now, before I go into the emotional part, I want to say that plenty of narcissists hit people. They're not necessarily domestic, I guess, abusers throughout their entire kind of narcissistic career, as I call it. They're not going to rely on that because it's clumsy, it's risky, it's dangerous, it can get them into all kinds of hot water, and it can quickly turn bad for them if any number of things were to happen. If they were caught, if they were turned in. And I think the real thing why narcissists usually don't hit people on a regular basis, they're not going to hit you, but they will intimidate you physically, which is still, by the way, that's physical abuse. But that's something they can deny, so they can do that. Is that narcissists, it's an internal struggle, it's an internal battle, and it's not really between good and evil, unfortunately. We like to think, they have some good in them, because I see it sometimes, and they're combating the good that's in their, or they're combating the bad that's in their heart and trying to be good. They kind of play that as well in order to draw you in, because then you feel sympathy for them, like they're some kind of lost hero and they're to be pitied and feel your sympathy because they were abused and they don't know any better, and yada, yada, yada. What it really is it's a battle between their fantasy and who they really are, and who they really are scares the crap out of them. to excuse my language there. It scares the life out of them that they actually could be what I'm describing in these videos. And so when they see the level of their depravity, whether it be beating someone or even considering murder, which I don't want to go into. It needs to be talked about. I'm not going to talk about a whole lot, but I strongly suspect narcissists, when they're at that rage point, they do think about murder, or at least extreme physical violence and really, really hurting you, really taking out their rage on you in a physical way. But it's not. It's that conflict between who they really are and who they want people to believe, and then it kind of scares them that they're actually that when it gets to those really depraved levels of physical danger and what they really want. And by the way, it makes them feel bad at themselves. It doesn't make them feel bad at what they do to you. They do not feel bad about what they do to you. Ever. I don't care if you get an apology, which you really don't. You'll never get a real apology. That's a topic for a different video. Narcissists and apologies. That'll be coming up next. But that, they don't care. They have no remorse whatsoever. It's really the fear that there's something wrong with them and what it could mean for them. And so when you're feeling that out, you can see where that leads to emotional abuse being the preferred option. I also think emotional abuse is the preferred option because they're born into a situation where that's being used. I don't think there can be other types of abuse, physical and sexual. I'm not saying there aren't, but there's always emotional abuse in the kind that I've described in the previous videos, in emotional manipulation and really damaging others' self-esteem to gain control of them and feel better about yourself. That kind of thing. The biggest violation of the golden rule, basically. And you can see where emotional abuse is justified in their minds. That's their version of, I'm not hitting my family, or I'm not hitting them really hard to where they're bruised and bloody and beaten looking. So it's okay. Well, they're saying, I don't hit anybody, so I'm not doing anything wrong, even though what they're doing is hideously wrong. And I think one of the things that empowers them and really exposes society as a whole to narcissistic behavior is the lack of understanding about emotional abuse. Frankly, I don't think people understand how bad physical abuse can be. Still, and people in physical abuse, you really don't want to deal with it. But emotional abuse is right up there. I'm not saying one's, worse than the other. Obviously, physical abuse and physical trauma is a different thing. I don't know that it's apples and oranges, but I'm definitely not going to compare them directly. But emotional abuse is vastly ignored and misunderstood because a lot of us grow up in it, and we think it's okay. We think it's okay when people make us feel awful chronically on a regular basis, and we form those relationships with other people. They never surface, they never come to light, and we never realize them. We live with them our whole lives. We pass them on, causing pain to our later generations, future generations, and that hurts people forever. But that's going to be another, I don't know how useful that little tidbit is, that narcissists don't believe in emotional abuse. It gives a lot of insight, but they can't believe it. They can't afford to believe it because it points them out. But it's going to be definitely a big sign I've seen again and again. So I hope you found that useful. I hope you liked this video. Comment in the comment section if you have anything to add or ask or to share with other people. And subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great day. Bye.